We are giving away a card, and all you have to do to enter is like, comment, subscribe, and on Friday I will be picking one comment randomly and announcing it in the video. Now back to the video. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So this is the meta share. Basically, since Mega Shine has been released, right now sitting on the top is Charizard X, Mega Charizard X and Mega Charizard Y. This deck has been seeing a lot of, it's just been dominant over every tournament. But that being said, we do have Mega Altaria and Igglybuff, popping in with a number of 290 entries. Also, not to mention, we do have Mega Charizard X and Y with 294 entries as well. Suicune and Baxcalibur being the third place. Third best deck right now, but this is just mainly based on entries, and just overall we're gonna go over all the new decks, and new and old, to see what's the best in the meta right now. So going into the first deck, you guys might hate it, but it is here, right? We do have Hydreigon. Hydreigon is really strong. It's definitely a high roll deck. There really isn't that much to say. At the beginning it was not performing really well into the meta, but I do want to mention, with Hiking Trail being introduced, you could definitely just drop everything. You could drop your lucky ice pops, drop your poison barbs, pokeballs, fill up your board. It's just kind of insane, right? And you could even use Copycat to thin out your hand. Use the stadium card to draw more cards, or look for Hydreigon pieces. It just makes the deck a little bit more consistent, and this weekend people are just starting to figure that out, and Hiking Trail definitely gave this deck the boost that it needed to pop off a little bit more. So we will be seeing a lot more Hydreigon everywhere in tournaments, or in those ribbon events, wherever, and you could expect it to be seen in this season of a rank as well. The next deck, in my tournament, it did pop off really well, and quite surprisingly, it's just a Chien-Pao, Baxcalibur, Alolan Ninetales. If you guys are not familiar with Alolan Ninetales at this point, whenever it does attack for 2 energy, your opponent cannot put energy from the energy zone in the front. And it also plays Team Rocket Grunt and Inflatable Bolt, because everything is a water type here, so you might as well use Inflatable Bolt while you still have it, because not unlike X Speed, you could use it infinite amount of times, and as long as it's attached, of course. You do have access to the rare candies for the Baxcalibur, Copycats, Alolan Vulpix, but overall the deck synergizes really well. You do have the Chien-Pao, Baxcalibur. I think these two cards go hand in hand together in every single deck, because you do want to push for game and apply the most amount of pressure with this Chien-Pao. The next deck I want to talk about is very interesting, and it seemed really strong, and it is strong, as a matter of fact. We're talking about Jolteon EX and Mega Manectric. So if you guys don't know, Mega Manectric does 80 damage, and then does plus 30 for each point that you have. So it essentially replaces Bellibow in other decks, but it definitely is better because it does have that 180 HP, has that, it's just a base 1, has Training Arena. It's just Sightseer is starting to be one of those cards that is going to be more useful in a deck like this, because you could use that to look for any type of Jolteon, whether it be the one that you're trying to do 60 damage with once you summon it, or the one that that pings for 20 every time your opponent attaches an energy to it. So I feel like overall, the Jolteon EX and Mega Manectric is insane. It just has crazy synergy together. It has electrical cord. Pokemon Center Lady. It's going to be a revolving theme here in most of these decks, because simply because Igglybuff is Sleep, and then you got Swablu Sleep with Darkrai, which arguably this is like one of the best decks around, and it's pretty common that this is happening. Of course, there's like a car in the highway. But that being said, Mega Manectric is all-time, best hitter. I do recommend you guys mess around with that, and yeah. Let's talk about this deck right here. This deck came in second place in my tournament on Sunday, and overall, I kind of like the build, and I do understand the Jirachi. So, mainly you do play the Igglybuff and Darkrai combo here in order to start pinging as soon as possible, and you could use Swablu as well to, get the same effect for Darkrai. And then, you push game for game with Mega Altaria. The deck overall is super strong. The release of Darkrai just made Igglybuff so much better, doing 10 damage and putting your opponent to sleep and taking 20 damage is insane. You could do 50 damage on turn 1 with 0 energy if you have double Darkrai in the bench and Igglybuff in the front. That's like considered the god start. And then you do have access to Rocky Helmet, X Speed. X Speed is for Darkrai. You definitely do not want to get stuck with that in the active zone. So yeah, no, overall the deck works. Altaria does Altaria things with Training Arena and everything, but you're putting so much damage on everything with Darkrai and Igglybuff. So I understand why the Jirachi's here, because you could just apply pressure with that 30 in the back row and push for game that way, or you could just have more Pokemon to put in the back row. You do play Copycat and double Cyrus. Cyrus is just amazing in this deck because you're just applying energy everywhere. And this is basically the other variant where you're not really reliant on having a Jirachi pushing for funny gimmicky plays. You do play the one Sabrina, one Cyrus, and replace the Jirachi for Leaf. So instead of playing the actual Jirachi or X Speed, Leaf will give you that guarantee swap on the Darkrai without wasting an energy. That being said, Pokemon Center Lady is here, and I do respect it for the mirror match. There's so much status condition going on in this metagame. You don't want to get stuck in there, and I don't blame anybody. Next up, we have Suicune and Chien-Pao Baxcalibur. This deck is amazing. The only real change it had is you replace Irida for Pokemon Center Lady, arguably one of the top 3 best decks in the format right now, and just like it's still consistent, it's still strong, it's still dominant, and just overall a great pick if you want something reliable to win with. The inflatable boats there, the giant capes are good, starting planes. There's not much to say about this deck other than it just pushes for game, pushes energy acceleration, and Chien-Pao, like I said, definitely pushes for game, and it puts a lot of pressure on your opponent's bench. Next up, we gotta talk about the GOAT himself, Charizard X and Charizard Y. So overall, this is my favorite deck. I don't care, I'm biased, this is the best. But this is Segan's build. He did pretty well. The only thing I will say about this build, it doesn't really have that much of an Ori counter. You do play double Rocky Helmet and a Sabrina's in order to get over the Ori, but the problem is if you see double Ori on the field, you're kind of cooked. Yeah, you could do 40 damage with the Charmeleon, but are they going to be swinging with the Rocky Helmet? And at the same time, are you going to be halting yourself with Charizards? It's just like, I don't know. Overall, we gotta find a better answer to Oricorio. Might be the regular Charizard, like back in the day, where we use the 4 energy to attack for 150. But overall, I think this deck is super strong, super solid. You got you got one Charizard X here, right? To deal 100 and 180. If everything goes sideways, you got the Rocky Helmet to push for game when a Mega Altaria attacks it, or a Mega Absol, or anything around like the 200 range, HP range. You do have Mega Charizard Y, 250, still 250. This thing is broken. Excuse me. And then Entei basically draws out your whole deck. And then afterwards, you'll be in a great position from there. But overall, still the deck I would say that's very dominant is Charizard X and Y. Now, I want to talk about this deck right here. This is a Magnezone Oricorio and with a Tecton Ogerpon. Yes, you saw the beginning of the video that we are seeing a lot of Igglybuff, Darkrai combos wherever we go. So the Ogerpon tech is really good here because you get to, like, you know, protect yourself from all those status elements. Like, the biggest one is that sleep, and, you know, even poison, I think. So it's just like all those special conditions. It's good to have. It's not the greatest to start with this Pokemon, but at the same time, you know, Magnezone Ori plays the same way as it always has, but having in the tech Ogerpon is definitely the new wave, and, you know, very respectable. And yeah, there's not much to say about this other than it protects you from sleep. Now, let's talk about Gourgeist. Gourgeist also has evolved in this metagame, adding Comfy. Comfy you have to have because the existence of the sleep scam, and this is basically a combined version of Gourgeist and the old school toolbox, because we have the Chingling, Comfy, and Jirachi. Overall, it's definitely still one of the best decks here. You still want to do the most amount of damage with this deck, and still has strong representation. And I do recommend you guys try this deck out, because overall Gourgeist Altaria is still one of the strongest hitters in the game. Lastly, I want to talk about this Mega Manectric with Oricorio and Pichu. This ended up winning the match tournament, and this deck is super strong. And overall, like, you know, you have Ori for the protection, Pichu for energy acceleration, which is kind of huge here because you can make things like Manectric attack turn 2, you can make Ori attack turn 2, and you got Electric Generator. So you do have quite a few ways to ramp up your energy. You do have Rocky Helmet for protection, you have Giant Cape for protection as well, because, like, you know, Rocky Helmets could help you push for those game numbers. And then you have, what do you call it, Pokemon Center Lady here, Cyrus, Sabrina. So overall, I think this deck is also super strong. And yeah, let me know what you guys think and what decks you guys are going to be playing for the next couple of weeks. And we will see you guys next time. Peace out, take care, and yeah.